Hello everybody, welcome to Module 4 of the Bit-by-Bit Bootcamp program. In this module, we're going to import code and have you run it on your local machine. We understand that coding can seem like an abstract and difficult task when you cannot see and interact with it. That is why we are hoping that once you are actually able to see some of the code and run it on your device, you will understand that coding is often not as complicated as you may think. Now, the first step is to go to a website called repl.it. Now this website allows you to create and import code within your browser. So go ahead and click the sign up button in the upper right. Select a username. If you don't have an email, we would recommend that you set one up. And create a password. We would recommend that you keep these credentials in a safe place in case you do happen to forget them. Once you've entered all the information, go ahead and click the orange sign up button. It may ask you to fill out a verification form to make sure you're not a robot. So if it does, just go ahead and follow the directions. Click verify. Now, once you've created your account, you're going to see the website start to display some text in the center gray pane. We don't need to worry about that just yet. Instead, go to the upper right corner and click on this plus new REPL blue box. Now select the import from GitHub tab and go ahead and type in row 4438 bit by bit bootcamp. Now, this is the name of a repository that's already been created on GitHub. And GitHub is a place where you can create folders full of different types of coding files, different types of data files, and make them available to the public. In this case, we've already set up a GitHub repository for you to directly import. And so you're going to go ahead and click the green import from GitHub button. Now you're going to see the website start to load, and we can start with this upper right hand side where we see a white box. Now this box is used to tell the website what kind of command to run when we click the green run button. So to run a Python file, we type in Python and then the file name. And since we only have one file, bootcamp.py, we're going to type in Python bootcamp.py. And we're going to click the green done button. You're going to see this upgrading to Python, and you're going to see the website start to load once again. Now we can start to take a look at some of the various sections on the screen. On the far right, we have what is called a terminal or command line. This is used to run scripts. It's also used to enter input for code or view the output. And terminal lines are very, very important for coders, and as you continue to develop more complicated files and scripts, you will start to realize how useful they really can be. On the left here, we have our file structure or file tree, where we can see that we have two files in our current directory. We have a repl.it file, which is a configuration file, and it simply tells the website what language we're using. We're using Python 3. And it tells it what we just entered for what command to use when we click the run button, python bootcamp.py, which we just entered a few seconds ago. Now if we go back to our actual bootcamp.py file, this is a file that we imported from GitHub, and it's the one that actually contains all the code. It's about 75 lines in length, but it actually has 3 different scripts within it. Now the first script is a binary converter. So what this is doing is it's going to ask for an input, a base 10 number that you enter, and then it's going to print the binary equivalent. Now the second part talks about, or it pertains to, Pascal's triangle. If you're not familiar with Pascal's triangle, the website has a great link at mathisfun.com which explains the triangle really well. What this is going to do is it's going to ask for a row number and an element number and then print us the value of Pascal's triangle at that specific location. Finally, our last bit of code is a Pig Latin converter, which will take a short string and convert it to Pig Latin. Now, the first thing that we're going to do before we try to run this code is go over to the terminal here next to the second orange cursor and type in the word clear. Then hit enter. This is going to get rid of all the wording that was in the terminal from beforehand and leave us a clean, nice section like this. Now, there's actually 2 ways to run the code that we have. The first way is to click the green run button, which we configured earlier. When we click it, we're going to be prompted by the code with this statement, enter any base 10 number. So you can just enter any number. Let's do 100. And it's immediately going to print the binary equivalent of this number. So 100 in base 10 is equal to this in binary. Now we're going to see this dividing line, which we can see in our code right here. And then we're going to go to Pascal's triangle script. So here, let's say we want row number 8 and we want element 6. So our code is going to print row and element and give us a value at that specific location. If you want to double check this, you can use the link that we talked about earlier to verify the value. Now the final part is the Pig Latin converter. So we can type in something like just a short little bit of text, and we're going to see this come up. It tells us what we entered, and it tells us the translated to Pig Latin version. And then we're going to see the final dividing line and a done. Now we can see that the done is the last bit of code in our file, and then we see the second orange cursor. Now what this tells us is that the terminal is no longer inside of our script and our code has stopped running. So the other way that we can actually run this file comes from the command we entered earlier. So if you look up here, when we click the green run button, the terminal actually got this input, python bootcamp.py, which is, if you remember, what we entered in the white box originally. So that is the other way that we can run files, especially Python files, in a more traditional sense. So we can go ahead and type in python bootcamp.py and hit enter. And then the same script should run. So we can, again, type in 100, get the binary equivalent, etc. Now let's say we get to Pascal's triangle and we no longer want to run this code. Maybe we realize there's an error somewhere, or we just don't want to see the rest of the output. We can click Control-C, which will bring us back to this orange cursor, which indicates that the code is no longer running. And we can also see right here that there is this keyboard interrupt, which tells us that the code exited because of the keyboard interrupt, which is us typing Control-C. And it also tells us what row we were on when we exited. Now this is actually quite useful in cases where you may write code that gets stuck and you are forced to exit, so you know what line caused the problem. So essentially this is the basics of running a Python file on your machine. As you saw, we were easily able to import code from GitHub and set up the configuration so that it could be directly run from the repl.it terminal. As we continue with the bit-by-bit series, we're going to start to learn to write our own code and try to understand how some of the coding fundamentals can be used to then run multiple files. Thank you.